Welcome back to Encyclopedia.zone. My name is Dr. Don Jolly. I am the editor-in-chief of Encyclopedia.zone, which is the internet's premier home for literary shitposting. And today, we're coming at you with some really interesting information about an Encyclopedia.zone project, which is being spearheaded by this man, Salient Abdican,
Hey
on
guys.
the Encyclopedia.zone forums. Let's turn back the clock and talk about when the zone had just launched and you and I were talking in the chat box. Let's talk about how this project came to be and what is Isle Diver, the Pages of Truth.
Yes. Isle Diver, The Pages of Truth, is a roguelike RPG with elements of Diablo, RuneScape, and Ultima. But what it originally came to be was Darn was just kind of kicking it around in chat with us. We were all just kind of shooting the shit and talking about, like, what does it mean to meme about the Jeffrey Epstein suicide? And
Suicide.
yes, the suicide, indeed. And what does it mean to, like, make effective memes about that? And, he just kind of brought up the idea of, like, well, what happens if somebody just made, like, a video game about it where you had to, like, make people physically read the pages to, like, progress in the game? And we were all like, damn, that's really hilarious. So, thus Isle Diver was born. It got a little more complicated than that, but it's effectively the same loop. Like, you effectively need to read the pages in order to progress in the game.
Yeah, it's like it's the gameplay loop of all the great roguelikes, but especially games like Diablo, although I do think we're going to have a turn-based combat system.
That we are.
But, powerful to get better items, to fight bigger monsters, to get more powerful. Very addictive gameplay loop, total Skinner box thing. But it's like Diablo 2, except in order to level up, you have to retype verbatim 500-word excerpts of publicly available Jeffrey Epstein court documents. It's, of course, set on Little St. James Island. This artwork that you're seeing, the 3D models and such, these were done by Salient. And, he's been working. We have a small team working very hard for the last couple of months. And we're really approaching a playable build of the barest bones of Isle Divers. So
it's coming super soon. Like, we've been kind of, like, busting through doors and, like, kicking down fences in terms of, like, getting this done. We had a bit of a setback where we moved from Godot to Unity, but now that we're using Unity, it's making things a lot easier. A lot of the code that we did set up in Godot has been, like, pretty easy to port over to Unity, since the ideas were pretty simple. And so, like, what you're seeing there, we have a script in Unity that allows us to generate dungeons now without, like, having to put them together by hand. A lot of what we've had to do is, like, set up, like, skins for the dungeon. So, like the one you're seeing there with Bill Clinton, that right there is just one of the skins that are in the Epstein prologue dungeon, and will be used in other dungeons. That right there is the entrance to the actual random generated dungeons. So, of course, we all know of the temple upon the hill, and there's the interior of it. Still working on it a bit, but everything's coming together really quick, and you should be seeing a playable build, like, super freaking soon.
yeah, it's all coming together because, like, there's a ton of talented people on the zone, Salient included, who's the lead designer of Isle Diver, and they've just been working really hard for the last couple of months. And you can follow Isle Diver on Twitter for more constant updates, but, I just think this is a perfect meme, a perfect extension of the fucking Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself thing, which has been going on. It's obviously a very important political message, and it's also, it's really fucking funny. I mean, look at that. Jeffrey Epstein as the Lich King with a giant fucking mace. It's this is the kind of thing that happens when you get people together on the internet and everybody's, willing to put in some time and some energy to make something fucking that could not exist otherwise.
Yeah, it's really flipping incredible, man. Like, this is, like, what I loved going on, like, 4chan for when I was younger. Like, seeing people really care about something. And, I don't know, it's really hard to find places on the internet where people actually want to contribute to a project or be a part of something more than just, like, let's talk about the last thing we, like, consumed.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that. I know like people like to enjoy things, but sometimes I want to make things with people.
Yeah.
And it's just so damn hard to find nowadays.
Well, and this is also the kind of thing where it's like, you're not gonna get like the Epstein story. It's got more legs in the mainstream press than I suspected that it would, especially in the aftermath of the Prince Andrew thing. But it's not something that's ever going to be fairly covered in corporate media. It's not something like if it doesn't die, it's because people who care about it are not going to let it die. And so I remember because I've been doing some work with Epstein Truth NYC over the past couple of months. And during the first meeting that I went to with them, this was this was a meeting in New York, in the aftermath of the suicide. And I was talking about the necessity of turning the Jeffrey Epstein incident into a meme, in order to assure that it doesn't escape the popular imagination, or it doesn't just get buried in the tides of constant news content that just blows like a snowdrift in from the networks every day. And I got a little bit of pushback on that. I remember one fella came up to me and was like, "Well, don't you think you're going to cheapen it? It's not the intention. Like with Isle Diver, it's not our intention to make light of the fact that you are ruled by vampiric pedophiles. But I do think that that's a truth that, if people are laughing at it, it's because they recognize that in some way it's fucking true. It's not because you're not laughing at the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself meme because you think that it's ridiculous to believe that a billionaire, quasi-intelligence agent would be mixed up in these kind of nefarious dealings. It's because it's because you're admitting to yourself. Everybody, I think, has really kind of admitted to themselves at this point that it's like we live under a very corrupt order, like a satanic in the truest sense of the word. And so if you can propagate that information, if you can play on that information as being something that's taken universally, and if you can force people to look at the truth of it, which, if the game works, that's what it's going to do, because it's a delivery mechanism for the actual documents, which is the other thing. If anybody is interested in helping out, we really need people to go through these documents and prepare the 500 word excerpts. We have some people working on that already, but anybody who is interested in helping out, go over to encyclopedia.zone, sign up for the forums, which requires a 250 word essay. Maybe just write up 500 words out of an Epstein document, and I'll let you in onto the forums, and you can help out with the Isle Diver development. But yeah, so what are you coming at it? Like, what's your opinion on the cultural valence of the Epstein memes and things like that?
Oh man, the thing that really rhymes in my head constantly, it reminds me of a quote by Mark Twain. That in humor, there will always be truth. Mm-hmm. That the only reason something is funny, and no matter how absurd it may be, it still is a reference to a very real truth. And man, I think that's hip as fuck, because I also think that using humor in the way that people have, it allows them to spread the message far farther than the fucking New York Times or whatever bullshit fucking... I suppose not bullshit. They do good work. Still, there are still publications out there that do good work. That's unfair to say. But needless to say, they don't do it in a manner that gets people to care. Like, these are real existential threats to your democracy and mine.
Yeah, I remember back when I was at the Revealer magazine, my editor at the time showed me this incredibly expensive production that I believe the New York Times had done. It might have been the Washington Post. And it was they'd spent all this money creating this big interactive website with moving graphs and inlaid video, and it was just this incredibly gorgeously designed feature. And it was about ski deaths. It was about the slopes that will kill you, and which slopes have killed which people. So I'm I don't fucking ski. I barely have the money to ride a Razor scooter. So like they're spending all of their packaging money, like they're spending all this money designing out this beautiful feature that's of interest to a vanishingly small minority of like wealthy people. And so it's like, I think this is what you encounter all the time in, I don't really know how to refer to it anymore, because I think like when you say mainstream media or MSM, or you use any of these dumbass acronyms, you just kind of sound like you're a conspiratorial thinker. I think the best way to put it is that they're corporate media. They're backed by corporations. They're supported by advertising. They pretty much exist to sell you products, even if that product is like a feeling of being informed. So like these people are not actually interested. Like they don't want to make you cognizant of the fact that you live in a world where you exist beneath the tyranny of like blood-sucking pedophilic oligarchs. They want you to feel like if there is a bad person in power, that person can easily be unseated in the next election, which makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel like, institutional evil is a defeatable thing. And like, even if their fucking vision of institutional evil is correct, if the ratings that these fucking dipshit Democrats are getting when they get up on the debate stage compared to what Trump was getting this time in 2015, if that keeps holding out, like, you're not going to defeat that institutional evil either. And like, Jeffrey Epstein is dead now. But the thing that we get from this whole case, and from the blatant assassination of this man, is this power structure is much sloppier, much grosser, much more, banal, and much more exploitative and disgusting than, anybody has been willing to publicly admit, I think, since like the Yippie magazines in the 60s and 70s. And you're never going to see corporate media attack these things with the ferocity that I think is necessary, or the humor, or the production value. Like, if you wanted to be a good journalistic organization these days, as Encyclopedia Zone, this is what we desire to be. We want to be the new New York Times. Not really, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you want to disseminate information in the 21st century in a way that is going to be useful to people, that's going to be entertaining, that's going to be engaging, it's products like Isle Diver that I think are, they are that thing. And it's not spending your institutional resources on ski deaths. It's like, this is something that's actually, this is very interesting, this is very relevant, and if you play Isle Diver, you will learn a lot about Jeffrey Epstein.
I got myself a freaking Pacer account just to pull down court documents about like all this stuff. Like it's nutty. Like right here, like I got this just so I could pull documents and sit and get all the information that we really need. Because at the end of the day, I think that a lot of journalists are kind of doing a disservice to normal people in terms of, how do you get people to actually read this shit?
Yeah.
How and it's not like people are too dumb to look at a court document. Like, most college-educated people have learned to some degree what is actually being discussed in these documents. I don't know if anybody in your audience did moot court or debate in high school, mm-hmm. or like forensics in high school. You will meet some debate teachers who will teach you how to look at a court document. Yeah. Who will tell you this is important, this is not. So I know that there are legally literate people out here, and there's plenty of legally literate people on the zone. Like, we wouldn't be giving you shitty information. Like, this is all stuff that has to do with what he did, what Ghislaine Maxwell did, all his little friends, everybody who was implicated via the Black Book or any other attached references or help me here. What's the word I'm looking for? Confessions. I wouldn't call them confessions, but
there's testimony.
Testimony. Pardon me. Yes, yeah. Testimony and statement that have been provided through these court documents that are public knowledge for the most part, if not for the fact you have to pay 10 cents a page. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't necessarily matter.
You can get most of these documents in PDF format.
But they don't fucking want you to.
Yeah, they don't. Well, they don't want you to spend time looking into this, because it's like, the thing about the Jeffrey Epstein story that I think is just like, when it happened, I remember people were like, "Oh, it's going to get buried. It's going to get buried. Like they're just going to get away with it." And I was like, "No, it can't. Not this time." Because this is like the fact that you have a sitting president involved with Epstein, that you have the Clintons tied up with him as deeply as they are. It removes like these are both political parties in the country. Like one of the worst traps that people fall into in political thinking right now is like my party good, other party bad. Like if only it was all Democrats, everything would be perfect. Or if only it was all Republicans, everything would be perfect. Obvious bullshit. But any claim of moral authority that these power structures have, like Hollywood, MIT, any of these people that are wrapped up in the fucking Epstein thing, like even the British royals, like any claim of moral authority that they want to make over you is fucking unbelievable bullshit now, obviously, and on the face of it. So you don't have to accept it when these people start dictating how you should live your life because they are acting like they come from a place of moral superiority. And you know who else is tarnished by this whole thing is the fucking journalists. The New York Times, you were talking about that, like, oh, all the good work that they're doing. And you are right. There's I read the Times. There are, talented reporters that are attempting to do their best within the corporate media machine. I would debate as to how much they are capable of doing because of the pressures placed on them by their position.
And I don't disagree with that. And I think that's where you're definitely right.
But the thing is, like, I remember when the Epstein murder occurred, they published an editorial within the next 2 days talking about how depressed he was before the event. And it's like, you realize that when you did that, New York Times, you fucking blew your credibility too, because now it looks like you're standing up for the kind of people who don't want their pedophilic sex activity exposed. Like, this is not like, ooh, they're covering up a slush fund, or like, oh, there's like, it's child rape networks with owl temples. It's very bad shit. The optics, I think, are deliberately bad. I think it's something that it is designed for the people participating in it to look like, a robustly evil activity. It is designed to look evil because it is supposed to be good blackmail material. And the problem is that now with Epstein's murder, you basically have admitted that there's fire there, that it's not just smoke. And that, we only have a very small fraction of documents covering a less than 10-year span of Jeffrey Epstein's activity.
You know what the most beautiful part of that is? In his first case that was put against him, they were actually able to prevent a good deal of the documents that were released from the court records to, if you access them via Pacer or any other sort of public what's the word I'm looking for? Public records access channel, he would be informed. He would be informed.
God. Oh my God.
Well, nutty.
Well, he can't be informed anymore because he's in fucking hell. But you know who's not going to get informed? You know what's not going to tip off the CIA? You know what's not going to put you on anybody's radar? If you just download a little game off of Steam, hopefully, fingers crossed, get this on Steam, greenlight. Then you could be, go to Thanksgiving's coming up. Sit down with your parents. Sit down with your aunt. Sit down with your uncle who watches MSNBC and your grandfather who watches Fox News. Be like, hey guys, you like Diablo 2? Get ready for the new...
Yeah, they do.
They love it. Get ready for the new dimension in video game entertainment with Isle the Pages of Truth. Next thing you know, they're typing up Epstein documents. They're chugging the bottle of red pills.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have a fully red-pilled family by Christmas.
You bet.
Guaranteed. That's the kind of thing that you get at Encyclopedia.zone. Yeah, I'm Don Jolly, Saline Advocate. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about the project. And keep a lookout. Follow Isle Diver on Twitter, and keep a lookout for more updates from Isle Diver, the Pages of Truth, in the coming weeks.